Yeah, inside the last 19 minutes of the SportsMax zone for this Friday, Captain Craig Braithwaite led his troops from the front as the West Indies mount a comeback against England after day 3 of the second Apex test at Kensington Oval in Barbados. The Windies picked up from their overnight 71 for 1 and at stumps were 288 for 4 to trail by 219 runs heading into day 4. Braithwaite is unbeaten on 109. Jermaine Blackwood added 102. Debutant Matthew Fisher, Ben Stokes, along with the spinners Jack Leach and Dan Lawrence, all have 1 wicket each for the visitors. Earlier in the match, England declared their first innings on 507 for 9 with centres from skipper Joe Root and Ben Stokes. Fazeer Mohammed is still with us to talk about what's happening here. Faz, the West Indies heading for 300, replying to 509 for 7 declared. We're into day 4 now. The most likely result here is a draw.
Looks that way, but Craig Braithwaite, as he pointed out at the close of play, saying that, look, the first session on day 4 is obviously going to be important because still trailing by over 200 runs, even with only 4 wickets down, they can't take anything for granted. They've done extremely well from 101 for 3 when it looked very unsteady in the morning session on this day 3. The only disappointment was that Jermaine Blackwood, after getting that battling 100, was dismissed by Dan Lawrence towards the end of the day, necessitating the night watchman Alzari Joseph, who's quite capable with the bat, as we know, only too well. So there's still some work for the West Indies to do before they can begin to feel safe in this test match, but they've had a very good third day of this test.
Yeah, I heard some people pressuring for Jermaine Blackwood to be dropped because of his lack of performances recently, but he did well today, didn't he? And his longest ever test innings based on balls faced, and second longest test innings based on balls faced. And you have to give him some credit because he is not naturally the type of batsman who is very watchful for long periods. So, you know, getting 100 today, he needed that, and the team needed it as well.
Yes, and you've got to give him credit, not just for this innings, from even before. Let's remember that in Sri Lanka, as bad as the series was for the West Indies, he took on the responsibility at the top of the order after Jeremy Solozano's unfortunate injury on his debut day of Test cricket. And even before that, against South Africa and a couple other Test matches, you saw an effort to at least try to bat properly for longer periods. But he still remains vulnerable, and that is the concern. And he credited the batting coach, Monty Desai, for his effort today. But again, let's not forget that he remains prone to those poor shots. That's what happened in the first Test matches, which is why the West Indies actually have been battling to avoid defeat in mid-afternoon on the last day. And indeed, in this innings, again, if England had reviewed that LBW shout of Ben Stokes, he would have been gone LBW for no score. He was yorked off a no ball from Mahmood in the last session when he was on 65. So yes, he is that type of player who's trying very, very hard to buckle down, and you've got to give him credit for that. But he still has that element of vulnerability, quite unlike what we see from Craig Braithwaite, was very much in his element today.
Yeah, after seeing the West Indies being pushed over in so many test matches over the past few years, I'm not going to grumble about the position that they're crawling into, but there's a question, Fazeer, about whether or not they can score quickly enough with the batsmen still there and still to come to put us in a position where we can even anticipate that maybe this game will set itself up for one of the teams to push for victory, of course, the West Indies preferably.
I can't see that happening at this stage because, as I said, 288 means that you're still, what, 220 odd?
Yeah, 219.
Yeah, 219. It has cut a long story short. But essentially, you don't even have to look at those specific numbers to know that the West Indies, first and foremost, have got to bat themselves into safety to ensure that they don't lose. It's unfortunate that we're talking about that already after 3 days of a test match, and you're right. The cricket hasn't been particularly electrifying. Yes, Ben Stokes played a few shots for his 120, but this is what you get with this type of surface. But again, credit the West Indies, because they could have capitulated and we would be singing the same old song that the opponents pile on the runs and have the West Indies scrambling to save a test match. It might yet happen, which is why I think it's more important that they occupy the crease, they continue to occupy the crease even if it isn't particularly attractive going into day 4.
Yes, and that's exactly where I was going with the next issue, the next talking point for you, because I'm saying if you look at what the West Indies have done over, well, clearly not 3 completed innings because this one isn't done yet, but the 2 in the first test and what has happened here, regardless of how some of us may be grumbling under our breath about the slowness of the batting, we've seen the West Indies rolled over in 3 innings, not so long, we don't have to look long in the past for that. So it is that we must, well, I don't know if we want to applaud, but we must acknowledge a solid effort that they have batted manfully. They've used the conditions in the same way England have, and it has not been a case where the Englishmen have batted. It looks like a flat track. The West Indies come out, and it looks like Sabina Park 1998.
Correct, and I think that's an important point. We have to acknowledge where they fought well. And Kumabana in the first test match, again, that level of application. Again, it's not particularly attractive, but it's important to contextualize it. In the circumstances, this is precisely what was required and continues to be required, and I'm sure will be required when the series moves to Grenada for the final test match in a week's time. Will that be sufficient in different conditions, against different types of bowlers, on helpful surfaces? Probably not. But we can only talk about what is going on right now, given our general pessimistic expectation that things can go badly very quickly for the West Indies. In this particular case, they fought extremely well.
Last question, Fazeer, and you're the perfect man to ask. For those, especially in England, who made a huge song, well, made a song and dance, a hue and cry over the absence of Broad and Anderson. Yes, of course, highly skilled technicians, especially Jimmy Anderson. Would they have made a difference to what England have been able to do with the ball on the kind of pitches that we saw in Antigua, the one we're looking at in Kensington now?
Because of their greater experience, they probably would have, because they would be a bit more consistent, a bit more probing, a bit more consistent in what they're doing. But again, you just have to look at the track record. They've been here before, 2015, 2019, the 2009. Jimmy Anderson was here pretty early in his career. Stuart Broad was just about coming onto the scene. And it really hasn't made a difference as far as England winning series in that period of time. So yes, you would expect with those 2 champion bowlers in their lineup that they would be a little more consistent. Whether that would translate into success, the evidence suggests that it would not have.
Yeah, and I'll say this to you as we say goodbye, Fazeer. The point you made earlier when we were analysing the first test, that the pitch was prepared maybe to ensure that there were English bums on seats for 5 days for the revenue factor. I was looking in a cricket group discussion and someone said, yeah, this is a business pitch, because it has been designed to do the same thing you had said from the first test. Thank you very much for your time, my friend. All the best.
No problem at all. Take care.
Good, good. A business pitch for a test match. Not good.